Alrighty, episode 3 with my main man Chase. How we doing today, Chase?
Great. Doing wonderful. Loving everything
So,
that's going
so,
on.
so we're just about a week into Trump's presidency. Um,
Mhm.
Signed a few executive orders. I don't know if you've
A
seen.
couple.
Yeah.
A couple.
One of them, or a few of them, have to do with immigration, including ending birthright citizenship. Um, First question to you, are illegal immigrants who have children in the United States, are those children technically American citizens?
I mean, since the founding of the country, yes, but I guess we can legislate there's two different aspects that I want to kind of highlight with the executive orders, and I think it's very interesting how you have a Republican Party who is basically caving into a, an increased powers of the executive. When Obama was in office, I remember Republicans' conversations around executive orders where like this is dictatorial, like he's forcing things on us, like basically criticizing the use of executive orders, saying that he should legislate. I mean, it's hard to legislate with a body that doesn't want to legislate with you, so there's that. But I also think that with the executive orders, it's very concerning that they're arguing that, yeah, a president can just sign an executive order declaring a specific constitutional right that has been agreed upon from every single party from the founding fathers generations down the line. And then he can just executive order that away. One, that's not how the Constitution works. That's just blatantly not how the laws and policies are supposed to be passed. Um, so I think there's that to be looked at with the executive orders. Um, but I also think that some of the things that he's talking about, it's blatantly discriminatory. It's blatantly like I'm revoking this 1965 law that makes us require contractors to, not discriminate against people. Who's that for? Like why are you rescinding certain things around these specific things? I also think it's funny at the one hand you're sitting there saying that there's no more censorship, there's no more government putting on and saying like this is what free speech is and all these different types of things. And then at the same time, you're going over here and you're saying, oh, we only have two genders in America. Doesn't that seem kind of anti-free speech? Doesn't that seem kind of like you're legislating your own ideals? But they'll say like, oh, well, it's just common sense. Um, so I think there's multiple things to look at with those. I mean, obviously, like the most blatant with his executive order so far has been basically around, I'd say, arguably immigration and kind of his policies of, dealing with the border, making it sending down troops and ospreys landing at the border and military vehicles and all these different types of things, which, I know people don't care, but it is actually more expensive to fly people in military planes back when you're deporting them. I know it's mostly for show right now, I think. But yeah, that's they're definitely something.
Yeah, I think that what's frustrating to me is to think about like where how this country was founded and where it started and seeing like how big immigration was to the United States. We've always been
Mhm.
a country of immigrants, right? Like technically all those Irish people, all those English people that came to the United States aren't the actual founding fathers. Those pilgrims were not the founding fathers, right? Like the true founders were Native Americans, and we kicked them off the land. And then we decided, okay, like, a couple hundred years later, we'll give them certain rights, give them certain parts of the land. They can build casinos, they're tax exempt, they get certain benefits that most other people don't get, but that's kind of where they draw the line. Like, that's it. And there are, certain reparations that they have received.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, we have all of these same people pushing for uh, pushing against reparations for Black people, even though, Black people Africans were technically forced here to the United States and forced as slaves and had it just as bad as Native Americans. Um, but that's, a little bit of a side note slash I digress from that point. But I think that we've always been built on, we've been a country that was built on immigrants and um, different nationalities, different ethnicities, different everything. And the fact that we're suddenly trying to make it so that we're so anti-immigration that, anybody from south of us, anyone from the north of us, there's just so much more restrictions that people aren't really able to, we're getting away from the fundamentals of what made the United States.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time we've been that country, we've also been the country that continually slams the door again. I mean, we have, and if we're being honest, we can all try to run away from it and all these different things. It's based upon white people's feelings, and we can act like it's not, or it's something else, or it's different things. No, based upon the people within power's feelings towards certain groups or immigration at large or the narrative in the country, we have a backlash. It's happened multiple different times within our country's history, and it changes the demographics of who we're talking about, the conversations of what, right? Like nobody's sitting there necessarily saying like, oh, those Irish, there's some rough people. We don't need those people over here. Obviously, because like there's so many normal Irish people now. So it's become normalized. I mean, you don't even really hear that about Italians or anything like that, right? But you do hear it about Haitians, or you hear about, you know, people from the Middle East, the Muslim ban, things like that. So you see people of certain identities being the target this time. Um, which, I mean, as the face of immigration changes, so does the xenophobia that's directed towards them, right? Like, you can't say the same thing continually because then eventually, like, normal Americans are going to be like, anyways, I'm going on about my day. But if you amplify it enough, if you say perhaps that they're eating cats and dogs, you talk about just these rather crazy. Like, I mean, the way we're talking about it now, it's like illegal immigrants are the evil of everything. They're the reason that your housing is not affordable and you can't buy a house. They're the reason that there's so much crime on the streets and stuff like that. And it's like it sounds exactly the same way that people would talk about different groups in the past. You know, they're bringing crime, they're bringing even I mean, they were even kind of hitting at disease there for a little bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as enforced as in the past, but um, all these different narratives kind of come together, and I think one, you kind of do see also the common culture at large um, normalizing that type of rhetoric and normalizing that approach. So, of course, the politicians begin to lean that way. And I mean, arguably you even have Democrats kind of siding a little bit more with that type of rhetoric and things like that, um, which is slightly concerning
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
But
It's very odd because, like, just to bring it back to what you had said about the eating the cats and dogs by Haitians, right? Like, Dave Chappelle talked about this on SNL the other week, and he said that there were a lot of really good people, like a lot of really good Haitians that were discriminated against and were given hell because of who they were and their identity. And he spoke about how him being from Ohio himself, and he's only 10-15 minute drive from Springfield, Ohio. There were the way that Springfield, Ohio was the way that it's rolled out the past couple of years is that a lot of people, a lot of white people did not want to do the jobs that were being offered in Springfield, Ohio. So the government shipped a bunch of immigrants legally to Springfield, Ohio. And those Haitian immigrants started working and doing jobs that a lot of those white people weren't willing to do. And there's about 20,000 of them. And they helped to go and build that community back. And all of a sudden, they're getting all of this flack and all of this hate for because apparently they're eating cats and dogs when they actually helped with the American dream. They helped to rebuild a community that was slowly dying and created jobs for white people, for other Haitians,
Yeah.
did so much to help the community. And those conversations aren't really the ones that are being had about those people that were, that have been impacted by this. Instead, we're focusing on, are they eating cats? Are they eating dogs? Are they eating the animals that we, house pets? Instead of like how they helped to build our community, how they made a difference, how they actually are actively trying to build a better life. Because he said like they didn't come here to be poor, they came here to work, and that's exactly what they did. 20,000 Haitians came to Springfield, Ohio, started working, doing jobs that those other white people did not want to do, and they started to build the community back. And it's very sad to see that the narrative is what Donald Trump made it by just a simple comment that he made during the debate, that all of a sudden now ran through Twitter and is still an issue that has impacted that community, instead of all the benefits that those Haitian people brought.
Yeah, I mean, I do find it somewhat depressing in some ways because I remember when that was happening, literally reading an article talking about how like they brought wealth back, houses were being, rented, and factories were opening, and like there was almost like this revitalization, but all people focused on was some black people. Like that's literally what it was like. And
Right.
it shows you sometimes how America, I feel like, shoots itself in the foot because of racism. Because you sit there and you think that these people are foreign, they're other, and it's like, okay, so were your generations of ancestors. Unless you're Native American, your family got here some other way from some other place.
Yeah.
We need to be able to acknowledge that's honestly very American. And frankly, small communities around this country are dying. And if, you know, there's people there who still live there who need a doctor or a nurse or some sort of positions to be filled that they need to rely on. And it's, I think we sometimes sit there and we act like, well, why don't we get some native born American there? And it's like there's nobody in the town. Nobody wants to live there anymore.
Right.
But for other people from other countries, there's plenty of people who want to live here and make that life, you know, better than what they had before. Um, and I think like not realizing that that is a gift is sometimes the biggest issue in America.
Yeah.
Like people will literally, like, for example, with the border and like people coming in, like undocumented illegal immigrants coming over the border and coming there. Why would you expect them not? You go around and you make the whole world known that you're proud to be an American and it's the greatest country on earth. And they used to the quote used to be the streets are paved with gold, right? Obviously, it wasn't literal, but it was just to show you like the amount of like wealth and opportunity that you could get in America. Um, and I think you can't expect everybody else to just be like, oh, well, that's for them. No, if I'm suffering and I have a child and I want a better future for them, I'm going to do what I have to do to get that. Now, for some of us, we're lucky enough where we don't have to leave from where we are. We don't have to go somewhere else and figure like our life out with that. Um, but I think if we were in that situation, we would. And,
I think a lot of people do forget the fact that they are running from persecution. They are running from discrimination. Like they're coming from countries that do have less than favorable conditions that they are trying to escape and trying to, save their children, save their spouses, save their brothers, save their sisters.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of people do forget their humanity about that because, like I said, it brings
Mhm.
it back to the whole Springfield, Ohio, and Haitians thing, right? Like the Federal Reserve or Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, even said when in 2020, 2021, when we had a labor shortage, illegal immigrants actually helped to stimulate the economy and helped to provide us like the ability to keep up with demand. And